Legal strikes include kicks to the outer thigh, kicks to the inner thigh, kicks to the body, straight punches to the body, hooks and uppercuts to the body. You cannot punch to the face, punch or strike to the back, strike to the groin, strike the knee or any other joint. You're not permitted to throw elbow or forearm strikes. You cannot headbutt. You cannot attack the kidneys with a strike. If you're standing, you cannot kick a downed opponent. And if you're on your back, you cannot upkick. For divisions where knees are allowed, to throw a knee to a grounded opponent, you have to have control of the upper body and at least one knee on the ground. You cannot throw knees to a grounded opponent from your feet. Strikes can be powerful, but they must be controlled, well aimed, and focused. Most takedowns seen in wrestling and judo are permitted. However, they cannot be performed with ill intent or maliciousness, and you're generally responsible for the safe landing of your opponent. You cannot slam. A slam is perceived when you lift, pause, and intentionally bring your weight down on top of your opponent. You also cannot spike or do any takedown that directs pressure down to the head or neck. If you're in a submission, you cannot slam out of a submission. And you cannot backsplash. You cannot do a flying scissors takedown. But you can do a scissor takedown if you have a connection to the upper body, one hand is on the mat. Legal submission targets include the vascular neck, the elbow, the wrist, the shoulder. Some divisions are allowed front headlock chokes such as the Darce, Anaconda, or arm and guillotine. And some divisions are allowed leg locks, such as straight foot lock or Achilles lock, or a straight knee bar. You cannot do small joint manipulation, such as bending fingers or toes. You cannot grab the neck or clavicle and squeeze. You cannot do any submission that applies pressure on the neck or spine. And you cannot do any submission that involves twisting to the leg or knee, such as a heel hook, a toe hold. And you cannot do compression type submissions such as a calf slicer or a bicep slicer. Straight guillotines are not allowed. This means a guillotine without the arm inside. And the referee has a discretion to break any hold that may put your opponent in danger. When performing a submission, you have to use applied pressure. Applied pressure means the submission is not cranked and your opponent has a reasonable time to submit or tap before there's injury, or the referee has a reasonable time to break the hold before there's injury. The referee will break any hold where the opponent is lifted above the hips. And the rules of passivity include not standing in an upright position during the striking portion of the bout, or executing a takedown but not furthering the action, or by pulling guard and not furthering the action. The passivity is on whoever executed the technique, whether it be a takedown or guard pull. Other instances of passivity is failure to engage, continuously backing up, refusing to fight. If you're in the guard, the burden of the passivity is on the bottom person if they have a closed guard and they are just clinching. or the burden is on the top person if he's just pinning. Again, you must try to always further the action by points, position, or submission. You can even be called for passivity if you're in a dominant position and you're not trying to further the action. And passivity can even be called for executing excessive strikes that are not scoring. Kicks to the leg are worth 1 point. They must land cleanly with power and show some type of trauma to your opponent. Kicks to the body are worth 2 points. Again, they must land cleanly, free of obstruction, be unanswered, and show some type of shock or trauma to your opponent's body. Strikes to the upper body are worth 1 point. And again, they must land cleanly, unobstructed, be unanswered, and show some type of trauma to your opponent's body. Knee strikes to the body are worth 1 point, the same rules. Maximum of 3 strikes can be scored from any one clinched position. In addition, maximum of 3 strikes can be scored from any grounded position, such as the guard, and there must be a connection to the body. You cannot be freestanding. Maximum 3 punches from the mount position. However, from the side control, you can land 3 strikes, adjust your position, and throw 3 more. An adjustment can be knee on belly, scarf hold, or different side. A clash of strikes, regardless if they're landing or not, will not score for anybody unless there's a distinctive advantage. Now, during a clash, if one person has a definitive last strike, can score that strike. In this case, it'd be 2 points for a kick. Takedowns are worth 2 points. Takedowns are also known as initial ground control. You must hold a dominant position for 3 seconds to get your points. The reason we call it initial ground control is it can take an entire round. The first person who obtains a dominant top position or back mounted position for 3 full seconds gets the initial ground control or takedown points of 2. Pulling guard will result in 2 points for the person who ends up on top for initial ground control. However, if you pull guard and you have an active guard where you did not allow the top person to settle for 3 full seconds, nobody will get the takedown. And if you do execute a sweep and obtain a top position for 3 seconds, you get the 2 points for takedown or initial ground control. You cannot get a takedown or initial ground control point if you're takedown but you end up in a near submission. However, if you pass that near submission and hold for 3 seconds, you'll get your initial ground control or takedown points. And near submissions will get you 2 points. You have to hold for 3 full seconds of control. Your opponent has to be totally focused on surviving or escaping with no offensive action. But you cannot continuously rack up the near submission points by transitioning from one to the other. Your opponent has to fully escape first. Side control is worth 2 points. You have to have most of your opponent's back on the mat and clear the hip defenses. Side control is the same whether you are on the side, you are on the scarf hold, reverse scarf hold, or knee on belly. It is all the same position. You don't get extra points for transitioning. Mount is worth 3 points, and again, you are mounted regardless if you're straddled, you have one knee up, or if your opponent is on his belly and your knees are on the ground without your hooks. And finally, back mount is worth 4 points. Different variations of back mount are 2 hooks in or your body triangle. And again, it's all the same position. You don't get extra points. You have a body triangle. And different than jiu-jitsu, you can get your back points if you have one leg in and you're in a good riding position where you have control of the hips and shoulders. If you do a takedown and you end up on bottom, but you have a dominant position, such as the back, you will still get your takedown or initial ground control points. And with this and any other position, if you land in a dominant position, you'll get your takedown points plus your positioning points. Open mat matches, if you push your opponent or he exits the mat, that is worth 1 point. Age-based technique limitations. Ages 15 and under cannot throw knee strikes, nor can they do any type of leg lock or leg submission. Ages 13 and under are not permitted to do any type of submission while standing. They cannot do flying submissions, and they cannot jump guard. Ages 11 and under cannot do front headlock type submission chokes, such as the Darce or Anaconda, or arm and guillotine. And finally, ages 9 and under cannot strike while on the ground. They can only strike during the stand-up portion of the bout.